Hello and welcome to the lesson. We are continuing with the subject Governance and Compliance Audit. Today we are going to study tendering and procuring audit services. Tendering and procuring audit services in Kenya. And candidates, the tendering and procuring audit services in Kenya, especially for the public entities, is governed by strict regulations to ensure transparency, accountability, and value for money. There are strict regulations that govern tendering and procuring of audit services, particularly in the public sector. For private entities, while the process may be less regulated, adopting a formal tendering approach is still a best practice for good governance. So in this lesson, we are going to separate tendering and procuring audit services for the public entities. We will analyze the steps in tendering and procuring audit services in the public sector. Then we'll also take time to analyze the steps in tendering and procuring audit services in the private sector. So let's begin with the public sector. Tendering and procuring in the public sector. Now, for public entities, these are government ministries, departments, agencies, state corporations, including the county governments. The process is primarily dictated by the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act of 2015 and its accompanied regulations. So audit services fall under consultancy services within this framework. Consultancy services. And the key principles of public procurement in Kenya include transparency. Transparency is the first key principle, which means openness in all procurement activities. The second principle is accountability, which implies clear responsibility for procurement decisions. The third principle is the principle of fairness, which refers to the equal opportunities for all eligible bidders. Then there is competitiveness as one of the key principles of public procurement, which is competitiveness. That means ensuring sufficient competition among the suppliers. Another principle is cost effectiveness or value for money, which refers to obtaining the best possible outcome relative to the cost. Then lastly, we have integrity, which means prevention of corruption and unethical practices in the public procurement process. So those are 6 principles of public procurement in Kenya. And candidates, our focus is on the consultancy services, particularly the procurement of audit services. So what are the steps in the tendering and procurement audit, in procuring audit services? Steps. Let's analyze the steps. In the public sector. Steps. What are the steps? Now, the first step in tendering and procuring audit services is procurement planning. Procurement planning. If you are a government department or ministry or agency or state corporation or county government, before you procure auditing services, you have to have a procurement plan, which involves identification of need. Number one, there is identification of need. The user department, e.g. the board, the audit committee, or even the finance department, identifies the need for audit services. For example, you may have annual governance audit or special compliance audit. Identification of the need for the audit services. Then there is a budget allocation. In this plan, we have first of all identification of the need, then we have budget allocation. Budget allocation refers to funds which must be allocated in the approved budget for the audit services. In the public sector, there can be no procuring of audit services unless the budget allows for it. Procurement plan. Now, the procurement unit develops an annual procurement plan detailing the special audit services, the estimated costs, and the proposed procurement methods. And this plan must be approved by the accounting officer. The plan must be approved by the accounting officer of the relevant government ministry or department or agency or state corporation or the county government. So that's the first step, procurement planning, which entails identification of the need, budget allocation, and a procurement plan. The second step in procuring audit services is preparation of tender documents. Preparation of tender documents. Preparation of tender documents could involve the request for proposal. So we have the request for proposal. We'll have time, candidates, to get into the details of how to design request for proposal. But for the moment, understand that request for proposal is one of the tender documents. This is the most common method of professional services. The common method for professional services like auditing. The request for proposal is prepared by the procuring entity, adhering to standards, tender document formats issued by the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority. All right. So we have the request for proposal. The procuring entity has to make a proposal and send it to and advertise it so that the potential governance and compliance auditors can respond to the proposal. You understand? And the key elements of the proposal for audit services may include the introduction, the background, the clear objectives of the audit, the detailed scope of work, and required deliverables, the qualifications and expertise of the auditor, the professional indemnity insurance, and so on. So request for proposal is the second step. The third step is advertising the tender. Advertising the tender. Advertising the tender. We may have public advertisements. Okay? The tender must be publicly advertised to ensure wide participation. And this typically involves publication on procuring entities' website, publication on the Public Procurement Information Portal that is managed by the PPRA. It may also include a publication in local newspapers of wide circulation, especially for high-value tenders, like advertisement. on radio, on TV, or newspapers of wide coverage. Okay? Advertising the tender. Then there's the tender period. The tender period. This is a reasonable period as per the Act, which must be provided for interested bidders to prepare and submit their proposals. Number 4, conference. Pre-bid conference. Pre-bid conference. This one is optional but recommended. And it is a meeting held to clarify the request for proposal terms and also answer questions from potential bidders. This promotes fairness and reduces misunderstanding. So the ones interested in this tender are invited to ask questions so that in a conference, so that there is no misunderstanding. Then after that, there is submission of bids. Submission of bids. Bidders submit their proposals, typically separate technical and financial proposals by the stipulated deadline and method. It could be physical submission in tender boxes or through an e-procurement system. Okay, submission. Then there is tender opening. Opening of tenders. Bids are opened publicly at the specified time and date, usually in the presence of bidders or their representatives. And details like bidder names, technical scores, and bid prices are usually read out. Then there is evaluation of bids. 7. Evaluation of bids. After opening the bids, then evaluation has to take place. That is what we call the Technical Evaluation Committee, which comprises of individuals with relevant expertise, including governance, financial, and legal professionals. So, if an evaluation committee is established, which comprises of professionals in law, professionals in finance, and governance. So there is the Technical Evaluation Committee. At the evaluation stage, there is the Technical Evaluation Committee and what we call the financial evaluation. There is technical evaluation and financial evaluation. Only this one is only for technically qualified bidders. Okay. The technically qualified bidders in this stage, okay, are opened and evaluated at the financial evaluation phase. This is stage 2. In evaluation, there are 2 stages. Stage 1 is a technical evaluation. If the bidder or bidders qualify at this technical evaluation, they move to the stage 2, which is financial evaluation. Only technically qualified bidders' financial proposals are opened and evaluated. If you pass this test, then you move to the second part so that your financial part is also evaluated. And the most advantageous tender is selected based on combined score. The score for technical could be 70%, the financial could be 30%. So based on the score, the most advantageous tender is selected based on a combined score, both technical and financial weightings as specified in the proposal. Understand? So these are 2 stages. Then there is professional opinion. After these 2 stages, there is what we call professional opinion. The evaluation committee prepares an evaluation report which is reviewed by the head of procurement and then the accounting officer, who may seek a professional opinion before award. You understand? So the evaluation committee prepares an evaluation report which is reviewed by the head of procurement and then by the accounting officer. And in most cases, these are tenders for higher values. 8 is award of tender. Award of tender. The successful bidder is notified of the award, and successful bidders are also notified and provided with feedback if requested. Okay? After that, there is notification of intention to enter into a contract. All right? Notification of intention to enter into a contract. After notifying the successful bidder, then there is notification of intention that is sent to the bidder to enter into a contract is issued. Notification of intention to enter into contract. Notification into contract. Then in step number 9, there is a contract signing. Contract signing. A formal contract is signed between the procuring entity and the successful audit firm or auditor. And this contract incorporates the request for proposal, the successful proposal, and any negotiated terms. Then number 10, we have contract management. Contract management is the last step. This refers to the monitoring the auditor's performance against the agreed terms of reference and deliverables. It may also include processing payments as per the contract and ensuring timely submission and review of audit reports. Understand? Yes. That's the procedure for tendering and procuring audit services. Then it's important to note regulatory oversight. The Public Procurement Regulatory Authority monitors compliance with the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act. It also issues standard documents and investigates complaints. The Public Procurement Administrative Review Board, on the other hand, handles administrative reviews of procurement decisions. So that's the procedure for tendering and procuring audit services in the public sector. Let's move to the private sector. What is the procedure for tendering and procuring audit services in the private sector? These are private organizations. Now, while private entities are not bound by the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act, adopting a robust tendering and procurement process is key aspect of good corporate governance. And the steps include defining the need and budget, number 1. Then budget. Similar to public sector, identifying the audit need, for example, the annual financial audit or specific governance review or IT audit or any other audit is the first step. Then you allocate a budget, just as in the public sector. You identify the need, then allocate a budget. The same applies for the private sector. You define the need, then you allocate a budget for that need of audit services. Step number 2, develop request for proposal. Develop request for proposal. Now, this is a highly recommended, even if not legally mandated. It ensures clarity and comparability. The content would be similar to the public sector, but tailored to the company's specific requirements. For example, the reference to the Capital Markets Authority code if listed, or internal governance frameworks. It clearly states qualifications required, like the ICS accreditation for governance auditors, ISPAC practicing certificate for financial auditors, the professional indemnity insurance, and so on. So developing requests for proposal is the second step. The third step is identification of potential auditors. 3, identification of potential auditors. Here, the company researches for reputable audit firms or individual consultants, then seeks recommendations from professional bodies like the Institute of Certified Secretaries for governance auditors or industry peers. And in so doing, the private company then considers firms with relevant industry experience. That is how to identify potential auditors. Then there is invitation to tender. Invitation to tender. These firms or individuals are invited to tender by sending the request for proposal directly to the selected number of qualified firms. So here, candidates, first of all, the company develops request for proposal. Then the company identifies potential auditors. Then the auditors that are identified are invited to tender. They are invited to tender, and this might be a direct request for quotation. That happens for smaller, less complex audits. You just ask for a quotation for the audit services from the identified auditors. But for complex, large organizations, you send the request for proposal directly, so that you have a number, give a number of the potential auditors for comparability. 5, proposal submission. These firms then submit their proposals. The company receives proposals by a set deadline. An internal committee, for example, audit committee or board or management committee, evaluates the proposals. There is the evaluation criteria, which should be predefined and may include technical competence and expertise, understanding of the company's business and industry, proposed methodology, the quality of personnel, the reference, the fee proposal, independence. Then interviews with shortlisted firms are often conducted. That is the 5th stage. You understand? The 6th stage is selection. Step number 6 is to select and recommend. Selection and recommendation. Selection and recommendation. The committee selects the most suitable auditor and recommends them to the board of directors. For approval. board approval. Board approval. Okay? Board approval. The board formally approves the appointment of the auditor, and for statutory financial auditors, shareholders approve the list or the proposed auditor. Do you understand? There is that board approval. The board formally approves the appointment of the auditor. For statutory financial auditors, shareholders' approval at the general meeting is required under the Companies Act. You understand? For statutory financial auditors, shareholders' approval is mandatory. Step number 8, engagement letter. An engagement letter is a contract, candidates. It is a formal engagement letter, which is a formal contract, is signed detailing the terms and conditions, the scope, the responsibilities, the deliverables, the fees, and the period of engagement. That is contained in the engagement letter, which is drafted by the auditor. It is the legal contract between the company or the private company and the governance and compliance auditor. You understand? Then lastly, you have contract management. 9, management. Relationship and contract management is the last step. This refers to regular communication and monitoring of the audit progress. It refers to reviewing of draft reports and final deliverables. After the engagement letter, the auditor is, after signing the engagement letter, the auditor is formally appointed, and that is the end of the tendering process, but there is this stage of contract management. So that's all, candidates, for tendering and procuring of audit services. Number 1, in the public sector, we've discussed the stages. 1 is procurement planning, stage number 1. Stage number 2 is preparation of tender documents. Number 3 is advertising the tender. Number 4 is pre-bid conference. Number 5 is submission of bids. 6 is tender opening. 7 is evaluation of bids. 8, awarding of tender. 9, contract signing. Then 10, contract. These are candidate stages as stipulated by the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act. You understand? Tendering for public entities like government ministries, departments, government agencies, state corporations, and also county governments. The process is primarily dictated by the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act. For private sector entities, the process is different. Okay, the process is different, but there are some stages that are similar. Like in the private sector, you first define the need and budget, and you can see it's similar here. Identification of need and budget. Step number 2 is to develop the request for proposal. Step number 3 is identification of potential auditors. Step number 4 is invitation of tenders. Number 5 is proposal submission. Step number 5 is proposal submission. The interested parties submit their tenders. Then number 6, there is selection and recommendation. Number 7, there is board approval. Step number 8, engagement letter. And lastly, contract management. So by adhering to these processes, candidates, both public and private organizations in Kenya can ensure a structured, transparent, and legally compliant approach to procuring high quality audit services. So that's all for our today's lesson on tendering and procuring audit services in Kenya. And we said that tendering and procuring of audit services, especially for the public sector entity, is strictly governed by regulations to ensure transparency, accountability, and value for money. As for the private entities, while the process may be less regulated, adopting a formal tendering approach is still a best practice for good corporate governance. That's all. Thank you. Bye-bye.